I'm Ashton Addison from EventChain for Investmentpitch Media and FinTech News Network. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Paul Walsh, the founder and CEO of MetaCert. Paul, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks, Ashton.
Likewise, let's kick off the interview by giving a little bit of the background of yourself, why you're so passionate on security, and how you got into the blockchain industry.
Sure. Started my tech career at AOL back in the 90s, and I was part of the team that helped to launch AOL Instant Messenger, 56K modem protocol, and some other cool tech back in the 90s. Then I worked in the mobile industry for a while, started my first company in 2003. And from an industry perspective, I've contributed to a number of industry standards and best practices. So I'm one of the 7 original founders of the Mobile Web Initiative at the W3C, which is the standards body for the World Wide Web that creates standards like HTML. And I also am one of the 2 people that co-instigated the standard for URL classification and content labeling. And more recently, founder and CEO of MetaCert, which is a cybersecurity company. And the way I got into blockchain was in 2017, a few crypto companies reached out to us and said, "Hey, Paul, you seem to be the only guys that have a security integration for Slack. We're being absolutely hammered by phishing scammers on Slack. Can you come and take a look at it?" And so we did. We ended up iterating the product because the bad guys were doing things we couldn't have dreamt of. And it was truly a massive phishing epidemic on Slack for the cryptocurrency world, for everybody worldwide. And so we ended up having our software installed by almost all crypto companies on Slack. And we just eradicated phishing on Slack back then. And that's how we got into blockchain and crypto. So it was June 2017 is when we got into the space.
Wow, that's great, Paul. And our Slack channel was also affected in the summer of 2017 from phishing, and it was widely known. So it's great timing for that application, and the phishing seems to be continuing on now that these pandemics are growing the use of internet communications. But we'll dive into that in a little bit here. But if you could just give a little bit more of an overview of MetaCert and not just the Slack integration, but the full application, and also, how is that specifically making the internet a safer place?
Sure. Following on from what we did on the Slack platform, we came to realize that it didn't matter how big or how good our database was in terms of classifying dangerous websites such as malware and phishing, because there's always going to be at least one victim before you can protect other people, because it's mathematically impossible for any security company to detect and block every new dangerous link or every new counterfeit dangerous website. So it's mathematically impossible. And we were just so frustrated by the fact that people were losing their entire life savings or companies were being breached. And so we went on this path to see if we could find a zero victim solution. And we came up with this social experiment in December 2017. And that is now what has led to our flagship product, which we're 100% focused on, which is basically a different way of looking at cybersecurity. And the strategy or philosophy is called zero trust. And that basically means that you assume everything is dangerous unless it's verified. So unless you know it's not dangerous. And that comes in the form of browser extensions. So we have a browser extension that supports Brave, Firefox, Chrome, and Opera, and soon Microsoft Edge. And it takes less than 60 seconds to install. And it does 2 things. Firstly, it does what every other security company on the planet does, which is it blocks known dangerous websites and links. But then the main utility that we focus on that no other company does is anytime you open a link, whether it's inside Slack or Telegram or your email or you're browsing the web, it always opens in the internet browser. So what happens is when you open the link, before the web page has time to load, it checks MetaCert to see if it's verified or not. So let's say you're opening a link to Zoom or a link to a COVID-19 news article or a government website, or you're signing into Microsoft 365. It checks MetaCert, and when it's verified, the shield that we install in your toolbar turns from gray to green. And therefore, you know you're really on the right website. Now, if the shield doesn't turn green for a popular mainstream website and it remains gray, and it's not blocked, then you know it's possibly a new threat that has not been detected by anybody at all. So the Gray Shield is pretty magical in that regard. And we've verified millions of websites and sign-in pages. And so far, we haven't had a single victim of a dangerous link or a phishing website when protected by MetaCert.
Wow. Very impressive. And it's great that you have the compatibility across all those web browsers. And so with this pandemic, I've seen articles about there's more malware and phishing attacks that are targeting North Americans more than ever. Have you seen this, and has your company had to respond to this activity?
Yes, we have seen it. In fact, I'm on the committee for what is called the COVID-19 Cyber Threat Coalition, and it's made up of about 3,000 cybersecurity professionals from around the world. These are security professionals that work for security vendors, brands, government agencies, law enforcement, and so on. And the task of that coalition is to do one thing, that is to create a repository of known malicious links and websites and IP addresses and other vectors that are specific to COVID-19. So it's absolutely going through the roof. We're also seeing not only are remote workers being targeted because they're working remotely where they probably have less security, but also they're being targeted with COVID specific scams and fraud, whether it's, a website pretending to be the World Health Organization, or it's a news website, or it could be a pretend government website saying that they've got free tests. But then also we're now seeing a huge uptick in the number of phishing websites made to look like the Zoom website, because the bad guys know that most people now are kind of concerned for their well-being. They're concerned about the pandemic, but they're also using Zoom quite a lot. So there's a huge number. I mean, we're talking about many, many tens of thousands of new phishing domains, COVID related specifically, every few weeks.
Wow.
It's a bit vague saying tens of thousands in every few weeks because we could see 50,000 in 1 week. So yeah, it's huge, and MetaCert obviously has suffered badly because of COVID-19, just like every other business. Um, but in a sense, it's good timing because our software is designed for end users, so it's perfect for remote workers, and it reduces the risk of anybody falling for a dangerous website by more than 98%. And I say 98% because no software application and no human is perfect. So we say 98%. So it's perfectly positioned for people who work from home because it literally takes 30 to 60 seconds to install, and it just works out of the box. And importantly, it's designed for humans, whereas traditional security solutions are mostly designed for computer systems and computer networks. But what we know is that over 90% of all cyber attacks start with phishing, which is people. It's humans being targeted with what's called as social engineering. And so our software is specifically designed for humans.
That's great, Paul. And interesting that you mentioned about the Zoom. We've seen Zoom bombing and the fact that there may be privacy concerns with Zoom, but I hadn't heard of phishing attacks in downloading fake versions of Zoom or impersonating the website. So that's really interesting to note. And there's so many of these different phishing attacks that it's just hard to keep track, which is why we need MetaCert. And to touch on phishing a little bit more, could you explain why has it become the most popular way of targeting people? Because there are so many different ways that cyber hackers are looking to hack into people's data and their computers.
Sure. It's pretty straightforward, actually. It's a lot easier to compromise a person with a lookalike domain or a counterfeit website than it is to try and take advantage of zero-day vulnerabilities. So trying to hack a computer system or a network is far more expensive, time consuming, and more difficult than looking up specific individuals to see what their position is by looking at LinkedIn, see what data they probably have access to, and then target them with a spear phishing attack. And that's how over 90% of data breaches and cyber attacks happen. It's not just on consumers. It happens in most cases when you hear of personal records being stolen. Like, for example, um, a Microsoft employee who works on Microsoft 365 was targeted and compromised in a phishing scam. And the bad actors then, once they had access to his systems, they had access to their customers. And so they targeted all of Microsoft's non paying customers with phishing scams so that they could actually steal their cryptocurrency. So what
Wow.
most people don't realize is when you read in the media or somebody has had their crypto stolen, they don't often realize that it actually started with a very sophisticated
Hmm.
targeted attack on the company that they use or on a supplier that they use.
Wow. And that was going to be my next question about cryptocurrency. And there's a lot of people who have been holding cryptocurrency for a few years and understand that, people that are holding their own private keys on their computers or offline, there's no other counterparties if they lose that cryptocurrency if they happen to get scammed. And I think I've seen not just wallet websites, but exchanges and the like, all trying to impersonate to dupe cryptocurrency users. Have you seen a lot of that as well?
Oh, yes. If you saw the number of domains that we've classified as phishing for my Ether wallet or my crypto or Binance, it would blow your mind. You're talking about thousands and thousands for each of those websites. So, it's like playing a game of whack-a-mole. Once you block or take down one phishing website, 10 or 100 more pop right back up, which is why our software focuses on telling you what's safe. And in fact, actually, we unfolded the most sophisticated phishing scam I've ever seen in my entire career, and it just happened to be in the crypto world, which was a blockchain company, um, and the founders of the blockchain company are amongst the smartest that I've ever come across. They're Russian founders, very technically competent, and they almost fell for a phishing scam, but they were using MetaCert because I'm also an advisor to their company. And what happened was these actors started to like their posts on LinkedIn. Then they started to engage with them. Then they started to reach out to them, pretending they were from Binance, saying, "Oh, you look like you have a great project. We want to look at this as a potential investment opportunity." So they took the conversation from LinkedIn to Telegram and email. And after a couple of weeks, they said, "Okay, this looks great. We want to invest in your company. But first, you need to send us 3.5 Bitcoin for upfront marketing commissions, and then we will invest $500,000."
Mm.
When they went to click on that link, they realized that the shield was gray. And for a Binance website, you would definitely expect that to be green.
Hmm.
And then they reached out to me. I reached out to Binance, and the Binance guys came back and said, "Yep, this is definitely a phishing scam." And as a direct result of that, they set up a private Telegram group just for the security team at Binance and MetaCert to collaborate and make sure that we always verify their new domains that they come out with in the future. So that was a very highly sophisticated targeted attack in the crypto world that was fortunately kind of stopped.
Hmm.
Um, but that happens every day of the week. Whenever you hear about a breach or a loss at an exchange or a wallet, the chances are that unless it specifically says that there was a vulnerability somewhere, the chances are it was a phishing scam.
Hmm.
And that employee fell for the phishing scam, and then the bad actors had access to other internal systems. So crypto companies, unfortunately, don't. I mean, Binance, my crypto, my Ether wallet are pretty mature in the crypto world, so their security practices and their security personnel are proficient. But for the best part, a lot of companies don't actually tend to focus too much on security, and they think that they're safe, and they assume that the only phishing scam they'll ever see is crypto related, but it's not. What it could be is a password reset for Apple iTunes. It could
Hmm.
be a fake Facebook login page. And then once the bad actor has access to those details, the chances are that employee uses the same username and password for other internal systems. And then they go off and they try those credentials and until they find that they've got access to sensitive information.
Hmm. Wow, it's a great backstory and just shows the lengths that these criminals can go to target the high level scams. So that's really interesting. I guess one of my last questions would be, there's a lot of North Americans that aren't using cryptocurrency or they don't consider themselves to be power users of computers. And maybe they feel like they don't have anything to hide or they don't really have anything to lose. What would you say to those average users on the computer that, they actually do have something to lose?
We all have something to lose. Because you may not necessarily be targeted with an attack, but I forget the statistics right off my head right now in terms of the number of emails that people receive and dangerous links that they click on. But whether it's spyware, ransomware, malware, over 90% of those actually start with phishing. So phishing is not what a lot of people think it is. It's not just the theft. It's not just about encouraging people to give away their personal details. It could actually be the installation of malware. Right now, hotel or hospitals are being attacked with ransomware attacks. Even though COVID-19 is a serious problem, the bad guys don't take time off, and it's almost always a phishing attack. The state-sponsored attacks on the U.S. government are almost always phishing attacks, like the Hillary Clinton email problem. That was a spear phishing attack on one of her employees. So for the average user, I would say I would give a few tips actually, Ashton, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And to go back to one of your questions is why do they target people? So most people have been conditioned to look for the browser padlock, and then they automatically assume that they're on the right website because HTTPS and the padlock means I must really be on Dropbox. That's not true. It just means it's encrypted. It just means you've got a private connection between you and either Dropbox or potentially the devil. So over 93% of all new phishing sites have a padlock. So you can't trust the padlock. And when you're in an email, hovering over a link doesn't help because it doesn't tell you the actual destination. It just tells you what the first hop in that jump is. So it could
Hmm.
redirect multiple times. Checking to see if the sender is the real person that you think it is, that's important, of course, but doesn't always work because it's easy to make an email look like it comes from Apple, the Apple business team, for example. Um, Telling people to not open emails from people they don't know or don't click on links from people they don't know, that advice doesn't work because we all have to open links from people that we don't know or we wouldn't be able to do our work.
Hmm.
So uh, just be aware of that. When it comes to MetaCert, our software is $2.19 per month, and we give a significant discount if you pay within the first 24 hours. So if you have anything that's worth more than $2.19 a month, then it might be worth to install it. If it's not, maybe not. But
Hmm.
um, it I'm not here to pitch MetaCert. I'm really passionate about protecting people from dangerous links and dangerous websites, and quite frankly, uh, telling you what's safe. It really is the only way to protect people because trying to block dangerous websites and dangerous links obviously isn't working because cybersecurity expenditure, cybersecurity investments into new technology is at an all-time high. It's increasing all the time, but then so are cyber attacks.
Hmm.
So something is obviously not working out here for us as an industry if we're pumping more money into cybersecurity technologies and companies are paying more for those technologies. Why are the cyber attacks still happening? Why are we reading about data breaches and personal records being stolen every second of every day? So um, stay vigilant and just kind of don't be too quick to click on things.
Hmm.
Thankfully, the days of 2017 where crypto companies we're sending out emails and telling people to click on links within seconds or they'll lose out on a discount. Thankfully, those days are behind us, because the FOMO, the fear of missing out, is one of the biggest reasons people click on links within the crypto world if they're being offered a discount they can't, refuse. So yeah, just being vigilant about time, and anything that says you need to do this fast, that's when you slow down even more.
Yeah, great points, Paul. I will leave the information to MetaCert in the description box below for the viewers. If they are looking to follow along to get more security advice, is there a way to connect with you or follow along with your work?
Sure, metacert.com is the website. Telegram group where we engage with our community. The Telegram group is t.me/metacert. My Twitter account is a little bit more difficult to find because it's Paul___ Walsh. The story behind that unusual name I'll save for when we meet in person and have a glass of wine together.
That would be great. Thank you so much, Paul. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and thank you for all the information for all of these people that need to stay diligent in these crazy times. And let's follow up in the near future and see the growth of MetaCert.
I look forward to it. Thanks so much, Ashton. Keep safe.